When and how this battle for this gay rights and human rights had started?
Well, we filed, well, I guess if I look at historically, for us, it started with our intervention in '94 with the with men having sex with men. And clearly, one of the things that was emerging over the years was the continuing police harassment of gay men. Uh, we do a lot of counseling of families of gay men, and invariably they would, after hours of talking with them, they'll say, okay, even if we accept our child is, it's natural and normal for a child to be gay. If it's all that all right, why is it criminal, right? And also, I think the larger issue is also an issue of rights somewhere. Here we're talking about a democracy, we're talking about a law which is so antiquated from 1860. So it made sense for us to ask. Ideally, we would have liked to get rid of the law totally, but when we kind of looked at the law very closely, we discovered that this law was also used for against child sexual abuse. So we couldn't get rid of the law. So what we asked for was a reading down of the law, not to include consenting sex between adults of the same sex. And the key is consensual and adults, and which is pretty much what the High Court judgment reflects. It says that if you are above the age of 18 and it is consensual sex, then people should not be prosecuted under this law. Well, it started because, it was a series of events that led to it. One is this constant, having to go to the police station at all odd hours. The police actually is saying that if you give out condoms, you are promoting an illegal activity. So, and I was talking, we were doing our work in terms of HIV prevention. So, I think it was like a series of things. It wasn't one particular incident, but it just kind of got so impossible to deal with that we just decided we had to do this.
But the judgment which has come, it also says that the judgment would hold until Parliament actually amends it. So do you think it's little early to be hopeful?
See, as far as this judgment is concerned, at least consenting adults are not within the purview of this law. So if we now start thinking about rights, then of course it has to be legislated by Parliament. Because, for example, if two gay people want to get married, they can't go to a court and file a PIL. All right, they can't go and get permission from the court. That has to be legislated through Parliament. So if you're looking at inheritance rights, if you're looking at marriage, if you're looking at adoption, all these things, it has to be legislated through Parliament. But at least all that, and which is why it's really important to understand that what this judgment does is it decriminalizes homosexuality. It does not legalize it, which means you can't take it. I mean, you have no rights as a gay person yet, so you can't go and get married, which is what some people thought they could do.
So many political parties, and I mean most of them, and religious fundamentalists, all of them are opposing it. So do you think that for the center government it will be?
The arguments put forth by the religious groups, to me, don't make sense, only because I don't think, if you take the moral stand, really there's no argument in, at least legally, to my understanding. In terms of the government, see, the way the judgment is written, I think it only strengthens the hands of government. It's a very solid judgment, and for people who haven't read it, they should read it. It's a fabulously written judgment. It's 101 pages, by the way. Okay. And it kind of situates the entire argument within our constitutional framework. It talks about equality and inclusiveness in the spirit that Nehruji and Ambedkarji speak of. It is in that context that this whole judgment is situated. So I think it's going to be very hard legally to counter it. Of course, religious groups have their own point of view, which they're welcome to have. No one is stopping them from having it. But one of the things I've always told religious leaders, because I've had a number of arguments with them, is that they have their constituencies, and it's fine, they can talk to their constituencies. No one is stopping them from doing that. But they cannot try and impose this on other people. They cannot try and impose it on government. We are a secular country, and I think it's very important for us to remember that every step of the way.
There's accounts by various gays and lesbian, Indian gays and lesbian people, and there was and they have said that they faced difficulties of working across class boundaries. So especially in a country like India, where we cannot ignore class question and caste question, how do you think? I mean, do you think it's an obstacle in such a movement or in a battle like this?
Listen, I think class and caste issues are across the board in whatever area of work you are
Sure.
involved in.
Yeah.
I don't, because I think we as a society are so stratified on class and caste lines that breaking those are difficult but not impossible. Because we are seeing that it has broken. I mean, increasingly we are seeing marriages among different castes, among different religions. So we are seeing some of that beginning to happen. So this, I think, is an ongoing battle and a difficult one. Of course, there's, for example, even in the gay community, very often in our work we see it, there is that English-speaking westernized gay person, as opposed to the more language, lower income people who are either kotis or transgendered. But I think we need to find ways to break those barriers.
You feel that there is a difference in this struggle if we talk in terms of the larger world scenario. So, for example, in 60s and 70s, this struggle used to be at its peak for example, in
US.
America, and now it's losing its larger cause because people are becoming more individualistic.
I think at least in our country, it's a very nascent movement even now. And clearly, it's not. It's very different from the West today. In the West, it's actually there's nothing political anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really sad because now all they want to do is get married and settle down, and that's it.
Exactly.
So there is no political analysis or understanding of issues. But we, I think, are just beginning to come into that phase. So for us, it's a very long battle for the community. Yeah.
Having a judgment on a particular issue is one thing, and changing the perception
Of
the
society.
is one thing.
No, if you look at law and ethics, right, or values,
Yeah.
it's very rare to see both go hand in hand. Usually one happens and then the other impacts it, or vice versa. So I don't think you ever see them go in tandem. But clearly changing the law in this case was a bit easier than changing the mindsets of people, because we are asking people to change their thinking on something that they don't really understand. I think very often looking at people's responses, I feel it is lack of understanding more than anything else. Otherwise, how could someone in all honesty and with a straight face argue that if we accept homosexuality, everyone's going to become homosexual? So then my answer to them is, then obviously maybe heterosexuality is the imposed behavior. Where is the I think it comes from a lack of information and fear.
Sure.
And therefore it really becomes important for us to keep engaging with society, and very often even on a one-on-one basis explain to people why their fears are not justified. So I'm very hopeful that as our younger people come in, as the old guard goes out, because we will, younger people have a different way of looking at issues.
Sure.
One thing I know for sure is that if we are a democracy, and if we do believe that everyone in this democracy should be given equal rights, then I think it's only logical that people who happen to be in relationships of the same sex should also have access to the same rights.